You know what movie I found myself thinking of more than once while watching Captain America Brave New World just now? The Flash. And as I sit here reflecting on it, the two movies do have a few things in common. They were both in development for a while before they finally made it into theaters. The development for both was kind of rocky. They went through some creative reconfiguring, and a lot of that was fairly well known and well publicized for people who pay attention to that sort of thing. And both movies opened to lukewarm to negative reviews from critics and underwhelming box office performance and a lot of negative reactions, or at least sort of disappointed or indifferent reactions from audiences. And a lot of those negative reactions from audiences and from critics seemed to be reacting not so much to what is actually in the movies themselves, but to the place that the movies held in their larger film series and franchises. The Flash movie was the first ostensibly solo movie to feature the Flash, right, as introduced in the Justice League movies and in the DCEU franchise. And the movie was judged based on the entire franchise more so than what was actually in the movie. And it was judged to be very poor as a result of that. And it was used as an argument to say, see, the DCEU, the DC Comics-based film series that began with Man of Steel, well, it's out of gas. It's over. It's all played out. And look, here's the proof, this mediocre Flash movie. And a lot of people are saying similar things about the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as a result of the underwhelming response to the new Captain America movie. But like I said, those are things I realized as I was sitting here getting ready to shoot this video, and I was just kind of reflecting on the two movies in comparison to each other. None of that I just said had anything to do with why I kept thinking of The Flash while I was actually watching Captain America Brave New World. The thing that made me think of The Flash as I sat in the theater not long ago watching Captain America Brave New World was that, like The Flash, which for a Flash movie has a whole bunch of Superman and Batman stuff in it that is only very, very faintly related to The Flash at all, this Captain America movie has a whole bunch of stuff in it that is just barely related to Sam Wilson or the larger identity of Captain America. There's a lot of stuff in the new Captain America movie that seems a lot more closely related to the Hulk. And there are times when watching Captain America Brave New World where it plays like a Hulk movie where the Hulk just couldn't make it. And they called in Captain America just to fill in for him last minute. There's so much Hulk stuff in this movie. And unfortunately, most of the Hulk-related stuff accounts for the weakest parts of the movie. This is a movie that feels like the people who made it, or at least some of the people who made it, really just wanted to make an Incredible Hulk movie. And I find myself asking, well, then why didn't they just do that? If you want to make an Incredible Hulk movie, just call up Mark Ruffalo and see how much money he wants to do a solo Hulk movie, back the Brinks truck up to his house if necessary, and make a Hulk movie. If you're going to make a Captain America movie, and especially if you're going to make a Captain America movie about Sam Wilson's Captain America, played by Anthony Mackie, and it's the first one of those, it's the first, again, ostensibly solo Captain America movie to feature that version of the character and to be led by that actor playing the character. I don't know. Maybe make a Captain America movie instead of a Hulk movie with some Captain America stuff kind of woven in, because that's what this feels like. And this isn't me projecting all of this onto the movie because I'm a comic nerd and I just happen to know, like, oh, he's more of a Hulk guy. She's more of a Hulk character. Like, it's in the movie. Characters in the movie talk about the Hulk and Hulk-related stuff a lot. Talk about events that took place in the Incredible Hulk movie from way back in, what was it, 2008? 2009, like one of the first MCU movies, the Edward Norton Hulk movie, from back before Mark Ruffalo even played him, right? A lot of the events from that movie come back and are referenced and are followed up on and drive the plot of this movie, and characters talk about it. Like it's a part of this movie. It's an explicit part of the text of this movie, and it just feels weird that there's so much Incredible Hulk shit in a movie about the character who is still regarded as the new Captain America, even though he's been Captain America for a little while now. And he was in a Disney Plus streaming series where he sort of accepted the mantle of Captain America. And it's not, he really doesn't deserve to be thought of as the new Captain America anymore, but that's still how people regard him. And his first movie is about 3/4 of a Hulk movie. It feels like a disservice to the character. And it feels like it creates this weird kind of dissonance in the movie, where it feels like a whole bunch of people in the movie think they're in a Hulk movie. And then here comes Captain America. Like he's only involved because he just happened to be at the desk when the emergency happened, and he was just the one who picked up the phone and responded. And he said, oh, okay, normally we'd send the Hulk to do this, but he doesn't seem to be around, so I'll take care of it. And you know what? Maybe if superheroes existed in real life, this kind of thing would happen. You know, the hero who is available will respond to the emergency, even if it's an emergency involving people who aren't technically his villains. Like, if the day needs saving, the day needs saving. And if Captain America is the one who's on deck to save the day, he's the one who's going to do it. It's not very dramatically satisfying, is the thing. And this is a movie. It might make sense in a real-world context, but these are superheroes. The real-world context doesn't really come in to it all that strongly. Now, having said all of that, I do want to make it clear. A lot of the negativity toward this movie, as I said when I was comparing it to The Flash earlier, does seem to be based on how the movie is being perceived as a piece of the overall MCU fabric. I don't find that to be a particularly helpful or a particularly interesting way of looking at the movie, nor do I think it is fair to the movie itself to view it only as that or primarily as that. I tried to judge this movie based on its own merits and what this movie contains from the beginning to the end of this movie. And I have to say, it's not a great movie, but it's not nearly the disaster that a lot of people were saying it was, and that I had heard that it was as I entered the theater to see the movie. It's mostly a mediocre, middling superhero movie. It's not the worst by far, like not even close, doesn't even belong in the conversation of worst movie or even worst Marvel movie, to be honest. I thought it was better than that Incredible Hulk movie that it references endlessly. But is it like top tier Marvel? No. Is it as good as Captain America the Winter Soldier, which is a movie that it will be compared to a lot and has already been compared to a lot? And to be fair, it does invite a lot of those comparisons through its tone and just the kind of story it's telling. It's not that good, right? But it's not nearly that bad. And most of the stuff in it that is actually related to Captain America, and specifically to Sam Wilson, is pretty good. Like, the best parts of the movie are the Sam Wilson Captain America parts. And Anthony Mackie himself puts in a fantastic performance and really carries this movie as the title character and as a leading man, right? He carries himself so well as a leading man action star in this movie. He's great. He is better than the material in almost every scene, and many of the best moments in the movie are because of him and because of his presence and his charisma and his ability to carry this thing, whatever it is. This movie that has no idea what it is or what it's trying to be about. Anthony Mackie, when he is on screen, he knows what it's about. He knows it's his movie, and he is doing the best he can to pull this thing along however he can. So he deserves all the credit in the world. the problems with the movie, and one of the other reasons why I say it's unfair to the movie to judge it as a representative of the MCU exclusively or even first and foremost, is because the problems with this movie and the things about this movie that keep me from really getting involved in it, from really liking it, are the sorts of things that really have nothing to do with its placement in the MCU. This movie, and I looked this up right before I went on camera to make sure that I would say the right number, not that it really makes a difference. This is the 35th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that's just theatrical feature films. That doesn't include like short films or the Disney Plus streaming series or other TV series that might be related to the MCU in some way or another. Just feature films. 35 since Iron Man in 2008. And that's a lot. And a lot of people who have reviewed this movie and given it kind of a negative review or a middling review have used the term superhero fatigue or Marvel fatigue. They say, well, the reason why this movie isn't very good, or the reason why audiences aren't taking to it like the studio would have hoped, is it's superhero fatigue. People are just sick of it. But honestly, having seen the movie, I think the things that are wrong with this movie would still have been wrong with it, even if it was the 5th MCU movie as opposed to the 35th, or the 2nd or the 3rd. I mean, look, The Incredible Hulk, which again is referenced in this movie a lot, was a bad movie. It was the 2nd MCU movie. It's not a good movie. I know it has its defenders. I know there are some people who like it. I did not think it was a good movie, right? And it was the 2nd MCU movie they ever made. So it's not as if we haven't been dealing with this, oh, there's a bad MCU movie, or at least an MCU movie that wasn't as good as we hoped it would be, since the very beginning of this franchise. It's not unprecedented. The reason why this Captain America movie is underwhelming and is a little disappointing and is not Captain America, the Winter Soldier, or one of the other high points of the franchise is because it can't make up its mind what it wants to be. It doesn't feel like it has a creative or a narrative center. It has a few different things that it feels like it's trying to say, but it doesn't really commit to any of those to come across as though it has a particular message or a particular point to make. A lot of the action is competent, is well done. There's a decent Hulk fight. I'm not spoiling anything there. I mean, you've seen the Red Hulk is in the trailers and stuff. You know that President Ross, played by Harrison Ford, turns into the Red Hulk at some point. I'm not going to spoil specific things in the movie in the review, but you know that if you've seen the commercials, if you've seen the trailers, if you've seen any of the marketing, you know that that happens. So I'm not spoiling that. And there's a pretty decent Hulk fight in the movie, right? And the choreography of it, especially at the end when it finally kind of settles down to Cap versus Hulk and all of the carnage is sort of out of the way and all the buildings have been smashed through and it's just, Cap versus Hulk. It's a decently staged, decently choreographed fight that ends in a fairly satisfying way. It's not groundbreaking. It's not, holy shit, I can't believe, what a great scene, right? But it's fine. And there are other things in the movie that are like that, whether they're action set pieces or character moments that are a little quieter or jokes or funny bits. There's a lot of stuff in the movie that's just, you know what, it's fine, right? It's fine. And then there's a lot more that's just sort of, okay. Like nothing in it is bad. Nothing jumps out at you and goes, oh my God, what were they thinking there? It's just, there's a lot of stuff that kind of happens, There's a lot of stuff that feels very off the rack in terms of like conspiracy movies or political thrillers or more grounded kind of superhero movies, some James Bondish kind of stuff, some Batmanish or Iron Manish kind of stuff that it feels like we've seen versions of it before a whole bunch of times in the MCU and in other superhero movies from other series and other studios as well. And it's just kind of, okay, generally speaking, I feel like I've seen most of this before. And this is okay, but I've seen it done better other places. And the times when it rises above that, or feels like it might be capable of rising above that, are when it does actually focus on Sam and on his world and the characters in the movie that are actually connected to him and have to do with his history and his personality and his persona and how he relates to this identity of Captain America that he has both picked up on his own but also kind of had thrust upon him. There are moments in the movie, and there were these moments in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series as well, where Sam feels kind of ambivalent toward being Captain America, or he doubts whether or not he is good enough to do it. There are a couple times in the film where he questions his decision not to take the super soldier serum and become super strong and super powered like Steve Rogers was, right? And he kind of goes back and forth about that. Sometimes he thinks he made the right decision. Sometimes he thinks, what was I thinking? Of course I should have taken the super soldier serum, right? Those are interesting beats. It's interesting to see the character grapple with that. There's a scene late in the movie when he's talking to another character and the character he's talking to says, you're always so on point. I made a big mistake in the movie and I endangered my life, but you always seem like you're right there and you do exactly what you need to do and you always save the day and you're always, I admire you for always being that guy and for always being where you need to be and for always having the best timing and doing the right thing. And Sam says, well, I have to. I have to. Because if I screw up, if I fail, if I'm not where I need to be, if I'm not who I need to be at any given moment, I feel like I'm letting down everybody who fought to be in the spot that I'm in. And he doesn't say it, but what he means is because he's not just Captain America and because he's not just the new Captain America, because he's the Black Captain America. And the movie doesn't hit that too hard and the movie doesn't push that too far out front, but it's there. It's there in a lot of Sam's scenes with other characters. It's there in Sam's scenes and just the general presence in the story of Isaiah Bradley, played once again by Carl Lumbly, who is fantastic. And Isaiah, as they tell you in this movie, and as you would also know if you've read the comics or if you saw the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, he was the first Black Captain America. And he did take the super soldier serum, and he was Captain America during the Korean War era, and then the United States government put him in prison for decades and basically erased him from the historical record. And, that's a powerful part of the story, and that's a powerful way of using this superhero story to critique American history and the United States government's treatment of Black people in the military and just in general, and the parallels to things like the Tuskegee Airmen. And a lot of this was made much more explicit and was given a lot more time in the Disney Plus series, but it is mentioned and it is present in this movie as well. So when Sam says near the end of the movie, I have to be that guy, because if I'm not that guy, it's going to look like I'm not just failing myself or I'm failing this particular mission. I'm proving that everybody who's like me doesn't deserve to be here. And that's in the movie. It's subtle, it's implied, but it's definitely unmistakably there. And that is powerful. And that's some of the most interesting stuff in the movie. And when stuff like that happens, I find myself thinking, I wish they'd made this movie. I wish this had been the movie instead of a little bit of this mixed in with a bunch of Incredible Hulk stuff. So it's not a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. It's not a particularly good movie, but it's not a bad movie. And a lot of the characterization of it as a bad movie, to me, sounds like people that are responding to the MCU on the whole as opposed to this particular movie. The things that are bad about this particular movie would have been bad about this movie regardless of where it fell in the MCU. There are 5 credited screenwriters on this movie. And that's not always a sure sign that it's a bad movie. There have been good movies with many different screenwriters that turned out okay, but it's a sign, right? It's a warning sign. If you're watching the credits of the movie and you've just finished watching a movie that was just kind of, didn't really do it for you, and then the writing credits come up and you see 5 or 6 names for the writing credits, that's when the light bulb goes up and I bet that had something to do with it. Oh, it was art by committee. It was a studio that couldn't decide what they wanted it to be. It was too many cooks in the kitchen. That is a big part of what I think the problem with this movie is. So it's not an MCU problem. It's a Hollywood movie problem. It's a studio problem. But like I said, Anthony Mackie is fantastic. The parts of the movie where it does actually feel like a Captain America movie are not necessarily fantastic, but are interesting and promising and feel like they could have carried a much better, much more interesting movie. And at the end of the credits, after all the credits have scrolled up, the final thing you see on screen before it cuts to the ending logos and all of that, and yes, there is a post-credit scene, although, I mean, again, I don't want to spoil anything in this review, but the last words you see on the screen are Captain America will return. And even though this movie wasn't the greatest, and even though I know its critical response has not been what the studio was hoping for, and its box office has not been what the studio was hoping for, I really do hope that there is another Captain America movie after this, that Anthony Mackie gets to come back and play Sam as Captain America again, not just as one of a million people in the next Avengers movie, but in his own movie, as the star and the lead character of his own Captain America movie, because he has proven, even though this movie all around him is often very underwhelming, he has proven that he as an actor and his performance as this character is more than capable of carrying a Captain America movie. So I hope that there is another Captain America movie, and I hope that that Captain America movie is Captain America in more than name only, because Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson has proven that he definitely is.